Good morning, traders. So how do we trade the Aussie South African top 40 today? So a couple of things here. So the first thing is we had a channel drawn in. Well, hang on, first thing, before we get to channel, let's just put that level in. So that's our 200-day moving average, and we've got a pin bar on the daily off it, which is a fairly significant rejection bar. Okay. Then the second thing is, we had this channel, that's the underside of the channel. And if I drill down to the half hour, pretty much that was the underside of the channel. Okay, so we did squirt down below, sort of break out, 230 odd points below the underside of the channel, but we came back into channel. Okay, so there's two ways of looking at this. Some people look at that as a break of the channel, and they're now waiting for an entry short, and that is a distinct possibility. Okay, now for me at the moment, the daily pin bar is fairly significant, but then the other thing that is very, very significant is let's get the 4 hour, is this pin bar, green pin bar on the 4 hour. Okay, so we had downward movement, and then immediately the buyer stepped in and pushed back up about the 200 moving average on the 4 hour. So, to me, the jury's out as whether we are going to continue to the upside or whether this is coming back into channel for a break to the downside. Now, we didn't create a new low. So if you look here, you can see low, higher low, ever so slightly. So you can call it a double bottom or pretty much a higher low. But look at what the oscillator is doing. So from that low there, if we look at the oscillator, it's a high, down to this low here, you can see the diversions. Now, when diversions is happening like this, in other words, we're creating lower lows where price is creating higher highs, that is continuation diversions in the current trend that you're in. So for all intents and purposes, the current mini trend is up. Even though we are being very volatile at the moment, it is an upward trend. Okay, so you should be looking to trade with the trend, and you should be looking for longs, and that's exactly what I'm still doing. Yeah, and I know a lot of people argue that, but then you missed out on this this move to the downside. Pretty much. But if you're sitting here trading the 5 minutes, you would have picked this up. You are below the alligator. You had a bit of consolidation here, came up to test the break of the 200 moving average on the 5 minute, and then there was your confirmation bar. So you were looking for a short. You could have gone short in here with a stop up here. Okay, so that would have been a 330 point stop loss, and you can see how we came back to the 50%. And if you don't believe me, well, a bit more than 50, 61.8, 50%. There it is there. Okay, and we accelerated the downside. So, there was opportunity to play short, but I tend not to use a 5 minutes. I'm using as a minimum a 30-minute chart. So for me, we had indecision bar, that first hour of trading yesterday, there was no clear direction as to what's going on. So I tend to wait, rather wait for the levels. Okay, and the level that was very clearly open was this one here, where you had two. So you had this inside tail here, which was the first area where things started happening. And remember what I always say, I'm looking for the second move. That was the first attempt at a level. So I would have wanted to see a second attempt at level and hold. And there was a second attempt, but it failed. Okay. And then we had a bit of a V reversal off there. So anyway, for me today, I am watching a couple of things with interest. And the first thing I'm watching is this breakout level here of 51,600. Okay. I suspect we're going to gap up today. We have a 1% increase in 10 cents. So 10 cents up 0.9% at the moment. Rand is slightly weaker at 14.33, and oil is slightly weaker as well. So I would expect us to have a little bit of a gap up, and the level that we're going to be watching is this level right here of 51,600. Okay, so I would expect us to hit here, possibly bounce off, and if we hold that bounce, in other words, we bounce up, then come off, and then gradually sort of just going sideways to up, that is going to be a entry long for me. Okay, so obviously I want to see a break of this to have full confirmation, and that's what we're going to be waiting for. But if I just take price action as a whole, so you can see, we had one move down, one move up, second move down. Now we've had one move up, there was a bit of a consolidation there, and then we had a second move, and now we're consolidating again. So if we just take that move there, okay, so the second move of this consolidation here closes the gap. It lines straight up to the daily gap. See, that's pretty much spot on. So one move up, consolidate, we break above that pin bar. Now I'm expecting this move. Okay, so that is still very much on the card. So I would expect us to gap up, close this gap, and there will be sellers here. No two ways about it. There will be some sellers sitting there, and the question is how far they can drive it down. Okay, now that is that consolidation, but there is a bigger consolidation here, which is this one here. So, for all intents and purposes, a break above this fractal should give us a target pretty much challenging the high of Friday. Okay, so that's kind of the way I see it. However, if I look at the oscillators here, we are in overbought territory, so the second move may not happen. What may happen is close the gap and then bounce off. Okay, the next thing we need to be very aware of is that we are sitting at the 61.8 at the moment. 76.2 is pretty much on the tail here. So, there is still merit for looking for shorts on the retest of the break here. But with the volatility we've got at the moment, I mean, yesterday is a great example where we've got a 900 point move down, and pretty much a 900 point move back up again in a single day. So you got to keep your wits about you. Okay, so on my 4-hour chart, my trend is up. I should be looking for an uptrend. Okay, on the half-hour chart, there's nothing really to read into this. We were kind of in an uptrend, broke, and now we're back above the alligator. So I would have expected us to sort of, if we're going to continue to the downside, I would expect us to bounce off the alligator here and move down. But we may just be moving up to close the gap. And if we look at the hour, you can see we broke through the alligator on the hour, come back to test the break, which is fine, but this closing bar here is quite telling. Okay, so in other words, the buyers were in from down at the bottom, from this level at the bottom here. They were pretty much looking, just like that. So they were looking in this area of 56.50, 56 between 56. What's it? It's 56. So between 5600 and 5650 is kind of the level that they were waiting at. Okay, there's 600. Where's 600? There's 600. Okay, so they were waiting at 600, 5600, and they stepped in. They didn't sell off at the close. Okay, they're still holding this. Now the question is, are they just holding for the gap close, or are they looking to build a position? And that is the difficult one to actually call at the moment. Okay, so I'm still looking for longs, and if you got in long at the bottom level here, good for you, and you need to be holding that level and watch what's going to go on at firstly 51,580, and then secondly here at the gap close at 51,720. So watch that area. I suspect we bounced down a little bit, but looking at these pin bars that we have on the hour, if you look at that, that is a fairly significant signal. Here is another signal for a move to the upside, and we got the move to the upside. Came back to test this level. So this is ultimately a double bottom. Okay, it's a double bottom in a bull trend. And it's not a very weak bull trend. It's not significant, but it is a double bottom nevertheless. So basically what I'm implying is we have a double bottom or a range, if you want to look at it that way, of 1,500 points. So a break above this high here of 52,150 gives us a 1,500 point move to the upside. Okay, now that's kind of what I'm looking at the moment. And if you look at the 4 hour, there's also another very significant pin bar with continuation afterwards. So pin bar, and there is my verification bar. In other words, buyers kept in and they continued buying. So that pattern there gives me quite a bit of confidence that we are starting to move to the upside. Okay. And in saying that, we may just go sideways. Okay, it's also possible, but there's a fairly good chance that we are moving up at this consolidation that we've had for the last 2 weeks, or 2.5 weeks now, is starting to come to an end, and we're looking for a break above it. Okay, now the next thing, remember yesterday I said to you we had a flat bottom, a flat top triangle here, which was a break of it, and we've come back to test the break. Okay, we fell quite far into the triangle, but nevertheless, it is still pretty much in play. There's a rejection off the level, so it's pretty much in play. So I'm still of the opinion that we've got some longs to look for. Okay, so what am I doing? What am I looking for today? I reckon today we're going to have a bit of a gap up, more than likely a gap up to close this gap. Then what I would like to see is today's opening gap close. So if we just move that up there. So I want to see us pretty much move up. Let's just draw it up. I want to see us gap up, close this gap. Okay, preferably in the first half hour, then a pullback to come and test the alligator, hold that, and that's going to be our entry long at this point here. Okay, that's kind of what I'm looking for. Going to be difficult to pick up the levels, but the main level that you want to watch is 51,500. So 51,500 can hold. In other words, I want this gap to close, because if we can just get the daily gaps to close early on in the day, then you have a fairly good chance of tackling this previous high here. Okay, so that's kind of my take on this at the moment. Now, what I don't want to do is go long right at the open, because it's 180 points, but still, I'd rather wait for the first pullback. So we are going to gap up, that's pretty much sure, but it may only be a short gap, fill that top gap, and then come back and close this gap, consolidate, and that's the level that I'm going to be looking for longs. Okay, so anything around 51,500, or alternatively along the 200 moving average here. So if I put another one down here, and that's 51,150. I just want to check on the 1 hour, pretty much in the same area, and the 4 hours pretty much in the same area there. So we could get a very deep pullback into this, let's just do it like this, into 51, let's call it 51,200 area. It is possible to get a pretty deep pullback into that, and I would like that, to be honest. A nice deep pullback and then an entry long. Okay, so yeah, for me it's still buy the dips, and you're just going to have to watch price action a bit this morning. And this move to the upside with a green candle closing us off. In other words, that last the last 12 minutes of trading yesterday, buyers were still buying, and that is fairly significant. So the bulls were very much in control yesterday, and if you look at this, we have a cup and handle. Okay, and the target for this cup and handle is obviously going to be challenge the previous highs and break it. Okay, so that's looking at 52,450. Okay, anyway, that's my view today. I'm still looking for longs, and the question is, we get a break above this, I'd like to see us come back, test the break, and that's my entry point. So my entry point that I'm looking for is around 51,500. Okay, so that's it for me today. I hope it helps, and enjoy the day. Catch up with you later. Cheers for now.